Wanda Rayner, and I am with the Robinson Graduate Career Advancement Center here at Georgia State University. I want to thank everyone, all the students that are logging on, or who have logged on, as well as our alumni panel. So far, we do have 4 alums that are online right now. But first of all, I really want to introduce my director. She's here. She's been with us since last August, and I want her just to give a brief introduction of herself before we move on, and that's Lauren McDowell. Hey, Lauren.
Hi everyone, alumni and students. We're so glad you could be here today. And I did join in August, the Robinson Career Advancement Center. Like Wanda said, I joined from Truist, one of our external employer partners. And just want to say, especially to this crowd, that my team at Truist recruited from about 40 universities, and the Georgia State students were by far my absolute favorite population to recruit from because of just who we are here at Georgia State. And we could spend the whole hour talking about that, but we want to hear from our alumni. So glad you're all here. Meaningful connection with others is the best way to do a job search. So if you especially are drawn to the alumni you meet today and what they're saying about their companies, I encourage you to reach out to them afterwards, because they could very well connect you with an opportunity where they're working or with their friends and contacts from their classes at Georgia State and where those people are working. So each connection gets you a web of potential hiring managers. So enjoy the time. Thank you, Wanda.
Thanks. And Lauren is also an alum too of Georgia State as well. So great, thank you. So far, I just want to introduce the panelists that we have, and then I'm going to let them give a brief introduction of themselves. We do have online Brandon Andrews. He's with Newell Brands. Jeremy Bennett is with Mercer University. Tashonda Fleming with Sumpo International, and Stephanie Lang is with Homerichburg. So I want to kick it off with Jeremy because he's like the alum of our alumni panel here. He has been on our panelists before, and we definitely enjoy his insights and input. So Jeremy, if you can give a brief introduction of yourself and the program you were in.
Jeremy, you're muted.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. Okay. So triple alumnus from Georgia State, two from Robinson, an MBA and an MS in organizational change. And I enjoyed that experience so much. I was kind of forced by my work to get my MBA a little bit, but I loved the experience that I went on and got my PhD and did a focus on training and employment. And I think the questions will lead me down the path that I've taken since then, but had a wonderful experience at Georgia State.
Great, thank you. Next, I want to introduce Stephanie Lang. Go ahead, Stephanie.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here. I actually went undergrad to University of Georgia, but got my MBA at Georgia State and did that in the evening program. Grew up in Atlanta, ended back at Robinson Humphrey, which was part of Citigroup and then SunTrust. I was there for 6 years doing equity research right out of school, got my MBA at night while I was at Robinson Humphrey. After that, I went to Bank of America and was a portfolio manager in their private bank. And then I moved on to Homerichburg, which is where I am today. It's a wealth management firm in Atlanta. We're located in Buckhead near Phipps Plaza and Lenox Mall. I started off as a senior investment analyst and worked my way up to chief investment officer. And I've been with Homerichburg now 17 years. And we have been growing like a weed. When I first got to Homerichburg, we were about 1 billion in assets. We were managing on the behalf of individuals and institutional clients. Now we're about 12 billion in assets, and we're constantly hiring, and we're looking for great people from Georgia State to bring on board. So that's why I'm here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. I also want to put a plug in for Hummingbird because they are a big supporter of Robinson Career Advancement Center. They have sponsored and are sponsoring a lot of our recruiting initiatives. So want to give you that plug. Okay, it's Tashonda, the girl from the big city of Brunswick, Georgia.
Thanks, Wanda. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I am a graduate of Georgia State University in the 2010 class. I am from Brunswick, Georgia originally and moved to Atlanta straight out of high school. And then when I graduated with a risk management and insurance degree, I joined a trainee program as a start. And I ended up moving to New York in 2011 with the company Access Insurance. Stayed with them for 5 years and moved from a trainee to now a senior vice president with my group managing the United States. So for our group, and that's a little over 500 million in business for us. So anyone who has experience in insurance or any of the functions of that, which is pretty widespread, certainly here for that. And want to also add in one of my passions is about diversity, equity, and inclusion, especially in my position and throughout my career. And it's something that I champion from Georgia State, and it's been an experience that's carried through. So very happy to be here and looking forward to it.
Thanks, Tashonda. Next, we have Brandon Andrews. Brandon.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I graduated from RCB in December 2019, so about 2 years ago. I got my degree in marketing. I was also a tour guide at Georgia State. And I think Cameron, who's actually on, we were tour guides together at Georgia State. When I graduated, I started my career at Turner Broadcasting in media, working on TBS, TNT, True TV. I did a lot of advertising for the Impractical Jokers. Great guys, a lot of laughs. And then a little bit over a year ago, I came over to Newell to work in consumer insights. So right now I'm responsible for research for brands like Rubbermaid. So I spend a lot of time with food storage containers, and then Mason jars and some of our other food businesses, where I recently got promoted because of my passion for food storage containers. So keeps me busy.
Yeah. Thanks, Brandon. I reached out to Brandon on LinkedIn. He was featured on LinkedIn regarding the PACE program, and he was giving kind of his testimonial about PACE program.
Yes,
so thanks.
and I'm sure it's my pleasure. I'm sure I'll talk more about that today. But yes, I was part of the PACE program and came back to work with it again.
Great. And Cameron, thanks. Cameron is next. Hi, Cameron.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for the invite. I'm a recent graduate of Georgia State University, graduated December of 2020. And I actually went to the College of Arts and Sciences, studying international studies. And now 2 years later, I'm doing a career in marketing, working at a digital marketing agency here in Atlanta for Online Optimism.
Thanks. So also students, if you have questions, you're welcome to put it in the chat, or you can come off mute and ask those questions directly. So I have some questions just to get the dialogue started. And I'll just ask this question to our panel. What could have been the best piece of advice you wish you had received while you were in school? And Cameron, would you like to take a shot at that?
Sure. Received a lot of great advice outside of, networking, getting to know people, being a tour guide, like Brandon said, is a great way to do that. But the one that I didn't receive was as someone who worked who majored in the humanities, have a portfolio, not a resume, but like a portfolio or a blog site that virtually shows what you have done and what you are going to do. Because if someone's looking for you online, a resume isn't enough. Sure, having a great network is good, but you want people to see what you've done. And someone in humanities who didn't really have like technical skills in the classes that are directly taught, you have to go learn it yourself. Having a portfolio made it easier for me to not sell myself as much because they could already see what I've done.
Thanks. Anyone else care to weigh in on that?
I'll weigh in. So I think you had mentioned expanding your network. I think LinkedIn's the greatest place for making sure you keep connections of your network. So if you don't have a good LinkedIn account right now, I'd say refresh that. I would say things like be careful with what you post on social media and any kind of things. As she mentioned, you can search people. So be careful with what you're doing there, because potential jobs might be looking for you on Facebook and seeing what you've done there too. So make sure it's professional outwardly. Internships, I did one. I wish I had done more. Study abroad, I didn't do any. I think those are great opportunities. So but looking back, I was very overly concerned with my relationships I had at the time, whether there's a friendship or other. But going out there and experiencing the world, or just more of the United States, and using that Georgia State ability to let you do that, is something that is going to be a benefit forever, and you'll remember those memories much more clearly than not doing them and just staying in your normal routine.
Anyone
I'll
else?
hop in there too, if that's okay.
Sure.
I would say a piece of advice is kind of just go after whatever you want, whether it's your first job or once you're in a position, if you see another position within the company, or if you decide there's something else you want to do, just go after it. And whether that means if you're, looking for a position right out of school and you see a job opening and, you apply through the portal or whatever it is, sometimes you won't get noticed because there's, a stack of resumes there. If you can find a contact and, whether it's through LinkedIn, like Jeremy was saying, or through networking, and then, try to have a conversation, whatever you want, just go after it. And then if you're at your current employer, once you get a job and you want a new position or you want a raise, be proactive and put together a business plan on why you deserve that raise or why you're a good fit for a new position. So I think, don't wait for things to come to you. Make sure you go after what you want, and that will really take notice.
Great, thanks. Good advice. All right, so that's kind of a segue into the next question. I'm gonna say, do you have mentors? Any of you have mentors right now? And if so, how are you utilizing those mentors?
I'll take this one, or at least start it out. I do have mentors, and it changes throughout the course of my career in terms of where and how I utilize my mentors. I think I even used one of the mentor programs at Georgia State at the time, where there was a professional that had attended Georgia State and there was a program, but that was a long time ago. So if there are programs like that, obviously I think it was a great idea. I got to spend a lot of time hands-on and ask questions. And even reverting back to that first question, ask the questions now. No one will be upset at the questions that you ask, even if it may be a little bit of a shocker. This is the perfect opportunity. There's nothing that can happen other than you gain knowledge and information about whether or not you want to move forward with something or not. So that what I would say is critical. But with mentors, what I found is you're really not reinventing the wheel for the most part, unless you're, inventing Facebook or Meta, whatever they call it these days. But otherwise, a lot of these businesses that we're in, there's so many people that have done it before. And in speaking with my mentors and having them, I've just been able to just correct some of those things and improve upon it versus starting from scratch. And it can be a lot of things in terms of salary, which I know when you graduate, that's one of the key things that you're looking for, title, how to navigate that, and how to figure out what to do, what to say, what questions to ask, and those kinds of things. So I think the mentor is very important. Also, when you want a private kind of matter that you might need help with, a mentor really can help you navigate those spaces in a way that I think has been integral in my career. And I know, and it definitely is helpful for others. So most people that I know that are professionals really love to be mentors. They love to take you out to lunch, have a good time. So I'd imagine in my college years, that is the most ideal thing anyway. So that would be my few comments on that, on mentorship and how valuable it is.
Right. Thanks to Shonda. I know someone just sent a question and it was talking about negotiating, how you utilize a mentor to show you how to navigate. And their question was, how would you recommend negotiating a salary for your first job?
That's a great question.
Mhm.
So it really depends on what type of job it is, but I'll try to be as super high level as possible for any of those areas. I would recommend finding someone who is a professional in a manner in which you think you can gain some advice. So it's hard for people to talk about salary. So most times you have to build some rapport with a person before they speak to you about it. But what I would say is, normally if I'm in a process or when I'm hiring someone, I typically know that people shoot lower than they should. So if you see an advertised amount, if you know your value, and when you're entry level, it might be a little harder to push for more salary, but use Glassdoor, use other people that you've met around, go to functions, happy hours, drinks. That's typically where you can get a lot of insight on what's happening and what the salary really is. But outside of that, me as a manager, I know some of the benchmarks and the ranges for certain titles from entry level to someone who has 20 plus years of experience. If you know someone or you can be connected to someone, and if you don't know anyone, feel free to reach out to me. I don't know if they provide contact information. I have no issues talking to anyone or helping you through that. But what I would do is just ask questions. When you're talking to the HR professional or the hiring manager and they say this is a salary, you can ask for more, or you can wait until you get the offer. And typically you can push back a little harder once the offer is in hand, because that means that they really want you there. So there's a lot of ways to navigate it.
Mhm.
But again, I don't mind assisting on a more personal level if anyone needs assistance.
Great, thanks. Thanks for extending your help on that. So the next question, Brandon, I want to ask you, how did you develop your network and did it help your career track? And anyone else
Yeah,
can weigh in after that. So.
Yeah, so a big part of it, to Cameron's point, was being a tour guide at Georgia State. I got to a lot of experience talking to the different departments at Georgia State, whether it was admissions or RCB. So a big part of that was, my connection is, I took the PACE class. I met Barry, the director of the PACE program, and he got me through the project introduced to people who were working at UPS, and then I was a recipient of the RCB Bank of America scholarship. So through that event, I met some of the donors, and I reached out to them on LinkedIn to everyone's point and just said, "Hey, thank you. Is there any advice you could have for me?" So to Stephanie's point, if you see something and you see someone, kind of take the opportunity to really leverage that and ask them about that. So, and I think Cameron can attest to this at Georgia State. We spent a lot of times talking to the guests that we met about their career. And a lot of the times they're apt to hand you the business card and want to learn more about you. So it just took a little bit of being proactive and putting yourself out there. I know a lot of people are introverted, but when you're an opportunity and there's people who are open to hearing what you have to say, like this forum, you really put yourself out there and invite it. So to Shonda's point, if anyone wants to reach out to me on a more personal manner, I'm super happy to help in any way I can. So if you find someone who is inviting you into an opportunity, really take advantage of that.
Right. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, that's great. And like I said, you did mention how PACE played an important role, in your development and your transition into your other spaces.
And I'll echo Cameron's point is that was one of the most important things I put in my portfolio to showcase that, it wasn't technical skills, it wasn't coding, but here is some important work that I was able to do that you can see on paper without ever talking to me what I'm capable of.
Cameron, would you like to add anything to that?
Sure. I was going to say, if you're for the students who are at Georgia State now, what helped me a lot in terms of knowing what to ask for when negotiating for not just salary, but my entire compensation package was Women Lead, LEAD, the program there now at Georgia State, and they were phenomenal. I think one of the things that might have made me hesitant before about asking was just because I didn't have information. I didn't know what was asking for too much and what was asking for too little. So in addition to what DeShonda was saying about asking people who are in your positions, which absolutely helped me, is doing, I guess, kind of sort of your market research on what the baseline is and how much to ask more than that. And again, not just salary, but benefits, asking for professional development opportunities, which which helps. And then also for me, I was really fortunate because the company I work with was so forthcoming with all that information in the first place. My supervisor was very transparent about her salary. And that really helped me feel comfortable doing that. I understand that's not all companies, but taking all those things into consideration and also being in a work environment that encourages that kind of communication can make it less intimidating to do so.
Thank you. So this next question, I want to have Jeremy chime in on it since he's a triple medal degree person. When you were interviewing, how was your degrees from GSU? How were they perceived?
So I'll tell you, my current boss has 2 degrees from Georgia State also. So that was a fortunate thing for me. Georgia State has got a good regional reputation. So I mean, Robinson has a lot of alumni out there. So it's not the same as like a Harvard degree that's going to get you kicked into the door, but it's definitely a thing that people will understand, and it's known. It's a known thing. And the branding that's changed in Georgia State since I graduated high school to today, it's a different animal now. Georgia State taking over, you know, the former the football stadium, all those things which I thought were even silly when I was a student, the football team and things like that, is actually the brand of it is good, and having these kind of things going on are good. So I think Georgia State can open some doors. They're going to open more doors with alumni. I recommend going to alumni events once you're an alumni. I was sad when they shut them down during COVID and everything like that. So I had some other, I'm going to just go through some of the questions I saw quickly. Recommending negotiating a salary. I failed at every salary negotiation I've ever attempted except for one. And I didn't mean to negotiate it. When I went to work for the Citadel and run their graduate programs, they offered me a salary and I said, I'm sorry, that's not enough. And I thought I was rejecting it. And that was my response. And then I got a call 2 hours later. And he said, what about this? I was like, well, that's a huge bump. Like, what just happened there? Why didn't you just offer that to me to begin with? So I think I go into a lot of my stuff with what is the salary range. And obviously I only hear the top number once they say it. It's like, so you shouldn't have said that number. Now I know, but not good at negotiating. It makes me very uncomfortable. So I'll even let them know I'm uncomfortable talking about salaries. Why don't we just go ahead and find that out? Once you get to the level in the thing, hopefully they posted the salary out there. And I don't know if you'll be able to negotiate past a posted salary. And I was actually talking to somebody here that was going up for a job with the Braves, and he really wanted to work with the Braves. Their pay was ridiculously low. But I said, now you've got to talk about, do you want to work for the Braves or do you want to make more money at another organization? He wanted to work for the Braves. It was his first job coming out of his program. So I was like, you have to recognize there's other things that you negotiate other than just salary, the place you're working, how many you're working from home versus driving in, work-life balance. Those are all things, other things to think about negotiating, other ways to get connections, professional organizations and chambers. I like chambers a lot. So I saw that also. And then I think student organizations, I see that as a question on here, are more important when you're starting out. They dropped off my resume once I started my actual career. So 5 years down the line, you'll notice you're going to drop off things that you did in college as much because you've started to make a business world impact. So trying to just go through here and quickly give all of my thoughts on lots of different things. So
thanks. Okay, so Stephanie, I know you've been with your current employer, what, 17 years?
Yes.
So have you changed your career path during that time, and how did you navigate with that?
Yeah, so I started out in equity research, so researching stocks right out of school. And I always had an affinity or wanted to get into more of the financial planning or managing wealth for people. And so, you know, it's a quite different in terms of, you know, researching stocks to managing people's money. So one of the things that happened along the way was, I within Robinson Humphrey, which was then I mentioned part of SunTrust, which is part of Truist, you know, it's a long changes along the way. There was a wealth management group within SunTrust. So I went and talked to the person within SunTrust and said, hey, I'd really like to work for you. And she said, great, it sounds good. Can you start, immediately? And I'm telling this story for two reasons, and I'll get to in a second. And I said, no, I can't leave my current boss right now because I'm in the middle of planning this whole big conference, and I don't think that's fair. Well, turns out that we're say a couple months from this conference, my boss ended up quitting like weeks before the conference. And so here I had, being loyal to my boss because I wanted to plan this conference and not leave him in the lurch. And, he ended up quitting. So that was a lesson in terms of, if you have an opportunity, there's not going to really be hard feelings. People know that you're going to do what's best for your career and yourself. And, obviously try to be as respectful as possible. But at the end of the day, you got to do what's best for you. And businesses are going to do the same. So that was a lesson learned. But the other lesson was, I kind of went after what I wanted, and it ended up, that didn't particularly work out. But then I did transition over to Bank of America. And I think, when you make that transition from something you're doing to something completely different, I think you tell the people, hey, here's why I think I could do this job. I know I don't have the relevant experience, but I'm really passionate about this. And here's the skills I think that would be helpful for this career. So you have to kind of sell yourself, even if it's not, direct experience that would get you that position. So again, it's kind of going back to my first advice, which is, go after what you want, and you never know what will happen. I do want to just weigh in quickly on the salary thing. I think everyone's done that. And I think one thing to keep in mind is when you're right out of school, first of all, you guys are in a great job market. So if you're looking for a job anytime soon, it's a good time to be looking. I think as some of the other panelists said, have an idea what the market range is, and, go ahead and, make sure that the job that you're going for, aligns with that, or you may want to look somewhere else or ask for that range. It never hurts to ask. And that's what I've also learned. The second thing I would say is don't get too hung up on your first job and what you're making. I started off at a very low salary, and I really picked the job because of the people I would be working with and the opportunity. And I think if you do a good job at your position, you can then go to your boss with a business plan and say, I've done X, Y, and Z. I think this allows me to go to the next level. And if you are doing a good job, you will get rewarded. So I think, money is important. We all need to live. And I think, though, if you do the right things, work hard, and be proactive about, saying why you're valuable to your firm, you will increase your compensation over time. Though I will say a lot of times you do have to ask for it. So just something to keep in mind.
Great, thanks. Good advice. Anyone else on the panel would like to?
I will just talk about
Mhm.
how I kind of made a mistake while navigating a career change. So I was working at Turner in media, and I was enjoying it, but it was a little too tactile. It was a lot of doing and not a lot of learning for me, which was really important in my day job. So I spent some time thinking about things I just accidentally enjoyed in my life. So I realized when I was an undergrad, I had this realization that when I would post a photo on Instagram with my girlfriend, I would get more likes than I would by myself. So then I would figure out, okay, what's the optimal time to post? What's the optimal photo? So I found myself just doing, research and determined that's what I want to spend my time doing. So I, ended up taking this job at Newell. And as I was leaving Turner, I was talking to my manager. She was like, well, I wish you would have told me that you were looking to learn about other things, to Stephanie's point. And she was like, I could have pointed you somewhere here in the company. that could have given you the opportunity to do that as well. So again, just hammering it home. If you find that you're interested in something and you want to learn more about something, especially while you're young and you're still building up those tools, it's definitely worth having that conversation because, they've extended you an offer, you're working there, they like you. And if you give them the chance, they'll give you the chance to really explore your interest and find out what works best for you. Especially if they see you an asset in their department, they see you as an asset to the company, so they'll want to keep you around as you explore.
Right. Thanks, Brandon. Anyone else before we move on? Okay. So I see a question here from a student. Is it Shivam? How difficult is it to get a job in a particular field if you don't have any work experience? Has anyone had any experience in how you navigated through that?
This is where the internships and mentorships are important, and that gets you it is difficult, and it also depends on what your field is. So as Stephanie mentioned, this is a good time to get a job, but if you don't have the experience to get the job, it's still tough out there. So reaching out, offering to do internships before, it's complicated once you move further on in life and have kids and family. And I was going to college while I had kids and family. I couldn't do an internship at those points in time because I had to provide for the family too. But if you have the opportunity and can do something in a field that you're very passionate about, and luckily I've been able to segue into a passionate field, but it's difficult. So any way you can get in there and work with somebody. I've had people that have done like pro bono or free work with a company just to kind of get their leg into the idea of how things work and get to know people. So experience is important, and you're going to want experience to be important once you get the experience too. So that's on the flip side. Once you have the experience, you're not going to want them hiring this person with no experience in the field. So.
Yeah, I'll add to it too.
Mm-hmm.
This is a great question. I talked to a client about it yesterday because it's the perfect time for an employee in the market. There's just a great span of shortages across so many different sectors. And what I would say is, and even for myself, as a hiring manager, what I have done is look for people that are more entry level with less experience, because it's harder to find folks who have 10 plus years XYZ. So what I would suggest is maybe a cover letter that can show maybe some other things that you've done that can just show your work ethic and maybe your ability to learn. And I think that what we've been coining it is learning agility. So just being able to be flexible enough to capture and learn something new is something that would be good to show to a hiring manager, especially at entry level. And just being consistent, showing up prepared, looking up the person's job and their title on LinkedIn, figuring out who they are, what they are. Look at the company's results, maybe, right? I think I heard Stephanie speak about Bank of America, XYZ. If I were going to interview for Bank of America, I'm going to look at what their results are for their Q4 or Q2 or Q1, something, whatever that interview is, just to have something else to show. I'm taking a step beyond the average person. This really means a lot to me. I don't have the experience, but these are the tools that I have that would make me a viable candidate. So that's what I would add for that.
Great. Thanks, Tashonda. Here's a good question here. It's like, what advice would you give to a non-traditional student during a career change?
I can probably speak to this. At the company I work with now, Online Optimism, their internship program is very different than regulars, that because this internship program is open to people who are probably non-traditional students, people who are much older, who are not just in their young 20s. And I got to communicate with one of the interns who's in his late 20s, early 30s. He just finished grad school, just getting married, like a very different life stage than probably what other internships may be going for. And when he was telling me about his interview process, because I wasn't involved in this at all, he had freelance experience to support that made him appealing to get this content writing position, internship position. Before that, he studied theology at undergrad and grad school. So I guess would recommend to the non-traditional student who may not even have official internship experience, create your own experience, be that writing for your friends who are doing projects, writing for maybe local business leaders who could benefit from something like that. Either I would say charge, but if not, free of charge. Anything like that, creating your own kind of experience, again, going back to building your portfolio. It doesn't have to be so you don't have to wait for someone to hire you to get that experience. You can create your own depending on the field, but usually you can.
All right. Thanks. Also, I just want to mention any of the alum, if you do want to put your LinkedIn profile or contact information in, Tashonda had inquired about that. You're welcome to do that at this time. So students, you can start here having, you're a mentor, somebody right out the gate here, fresh. And if you do reach out to them on LinkedIn, just make sure you mention how you met them. It was through this Alumni Career Tips panel, and then just go from there. But yes, if you're willing to do that, alumni, put your LinkedIn information in the chat and the students can retrieve it from there. That'd be great. So another question I'd like to ask, when you attended Georgia State or Robinson, whatever college you were in, did it set you apart from students from other schools when you were going through the interview process? How did that look for you? Anyone had that experience?
I can say, I think there was a level of hunger that might not have been there for some of the other schools. Jeremy's point, Georgia State's a school that's been rebranding for a few years and really getting its reputation out there. So I think the businesses in Georgia at least are starting to understand this is, it's been looked as an up and coming school, but recently it's really cemented itself as one of those top schools. But I think the students still have the attitude of they're working really hard to be in this space of big business. So when I was interviewing at Turner, I asked, when I got the offer, like, why me? And the hiring manager said, well, everyone else felt like they were giving, 100% of the interview process, but you were giving 101%. And is there any reason in particular? And that was my thought process of, I'm competing with Georgia Tech and UGA, and those are big schools. And she said a lot of times she sees that same thing from Georgia State students of, everybody wants it. Sometimes we just want it more. And I think that companies are understanding that. And Georgia State has a different background of students than a lot of other universities that bring a lot of really great things. So not traditional students, international students. So I think there's an understanding that you're getting a diverse student in terms of experience and lifestyle that you might not get from another university, especially in Georgia.
Yeah, that's a great point to mention, Jeremy. I'm sorry, Brandon, because it's almost like in order for Georgia State, they're standing out because, like you said, they're showing that hunger and that eagerness, and that stands out. And it's almost an attribute now that's being associated, with Georgia State candidates. When employers see them, that they got a little bit more edge or drive or ambition, in that interview process. So when other schools are kind of laid back on, this is my school brand, I'm here, hire me, type of attitude. It's like, I'm going to display and demonstrate exactly what I can bring to the table. So thank you for bringing that out. Anybody else on that question? So the next question, are you a part of any alumni events or professional organizations? Anything like that?
I can jump in here again. To Jeremy's point, as I've kind of moved through the business world, I've taken some of that college stuff off and found ways to get involved in professional organizations. So recently I joined the Adweek Rising program. So that was an opportunity to, one, connect with other professionals, but to really test myself, outside of school, can I try to make a name for myself in the professional space, which was super important. And then again, for me, I reached back out to Pace, the director, to really, sharpen my skills in a more professional sense as well. So I would say, as you move from undergrad to, the career field, don't lose that same interest in expanding beyond just the day-to-day. Really entrench yourself in the community and the different opportunities. Even while you're in college, there's definitely still professional opportunities outside of school to do.
Yeah, I'll add in
Thanks,
too.
Brandon. Mhm.
I did participate maybe in the earlier portion after my college years in some of the alumni events in New York.
Mhm.
I think that there's a lot more activity maybe in Atlanta or in some other cities. But it was actually a really good experience to see and to communicate with individuals who are in the same situation as I at some point, especially when you're in a different state. It makes it a lot better. There's so many alumni across the US and everywhere else. It's pretty amazing. So participating in some of those events is very helpful in just terms of connections, networking, finding other people, and further to what Brandon was saying in terms of professional organizations. As you maneuver through your career, you'll see what you like and don't like. And I've joined quite a few, and it's helped me, just increase my level of visibility. The more that you are active in those organizations, whether it's volunteering, doing other things, you'll just be able to join panels, things like this, or receive awards or receive just connections about job opportunities, whatever it may be, the like, and also just professional friends, throughout the course of time. Those are all things that will be important for the totality of your life versus just the work portion of it. So I think the professional organizations and even the alumni events are all amazing things to take a part in, just at any point in your career.
Thanks, Deshonta. Anyone else before we move on? Okay. So now I'd like some of the students. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Cameron.
No, it's I would say two of them, Atlanta Tech Village. I really like them a lot. They have an incredible place to be if you're interested in entrepreneurship or just getting your feet wet in other industries that you may have not considered before, such as tech. And then outside of that, ABWA, the American Business Women's Association. They have plenty of chapters around Atlanta. The one I'm close with is Buckhead, and then the Cobb Chamber of Commerce, which is also something you can ask for possibly when you're asking for your compensation in jobs, asking for them to pay for certain memberships to different organizations. So something to consider as well.
That was very good advice. So I'd like to hear from our students out there. I know you all have been putting questions in the chat, but I'd like for you to personally ask the alumni panel here a question. If you can come off mute or camera on and just engage with them for a little while. Anyone would like to do that?
Hello.
Hi,
Um,
Teresa. Hi.
There we go. I am graduating this May, and I just had a question, what I should expect in my very first job role, if there's any questions I should ask before starting, or something that kind of surprised you getting into the real world.
I would say a question I've asked was, what does success look like in this role? To really level set what the expectations are. Again, when you're coming in new to the workforce and you don't have as much experience, what can you do? And what a year from now would look like success? So is it learning? Is it getting your head in the books? Or is it executing something so you really know where to put your effort into? And I would say the biggest shock is, you're no longer getting graded. You do a good job on a project and you don't expect to get the A back at the end of it. And you just kind of keep going. So it's a lot of reassuring yourself, hey, I'm doing a great job here. Like, the metric that might come is years down the road and it's financial. So there's not the instant gratification that you get when you turn in an essay. It's a little bit more of a slow burn. I'm working on a project that doesn't hit shelves till 2024. So every day I'm telling myself, okay, we're making really good progress. We're checking in and we're chugging along, and always seeing along the way with my mentors and manager, is this what success looks like right now? Or is there something else which we should be focused on, just so I don't ever get too lost in the sauce and I kind of have a direction at all times?
So I'll speak to going in with a positive attitude and being careful about any kind of, you want to get the right mentors. We've talked about mentors, but there's also bad mentors out there. So just be careful. And I've seen this, my wife has seen this to a bigger extent, where people are trying to help you, but they're feeding you bad information. It's actually not going to help you. A little bit poisoning the well while you're there, but they don't even know they're doing it necessarily. But just be careful about jumping into the negativity of the job and try to embrace the good parts of the job. And if it is a negative situation, then you look to exit the thing. So I'm going to bring up, this is not the question, but it is important, I think, is, when they say burning bridges as you're leaving and things like that, I would recommend not doing that. You may dislike the organization and the organization might change to a different organization 5 years later, and you might want to come back. Presidents, CEOs change. So I'm fortunate the last 2 places I've worked, I'm still working there as a consultant at one place and then as an instructor at the other place. Because as I left, they came back and they said, you provided value. We don't want to lose all of that, even though you're moving on. So keep those doors open. You want references later on. That's a real thing. People are going to maybe ask to talk to your references. So make good connections and keep them in. And if something negative is happening, and I'm not saying if it's an HR issue, you don't report it. I'm saying you do this, but don't complain about just the random stuff. If you don't like the flavor Cheetos, those kind of things, don't let that ruin your experience and everything. So put that out there.
I'll hop in here as well. I would say, your first job, your entry level, you're typically supporting other people in the organization. So I think one thing to keep in mind is just be dependable. Whatever you're asked to do, make sure you do it correctly, on time. Don't be afraid to ask for questions along the way. If you do have spare time, make sure you're asking, is there additional projects I can be helping on? People love that. There's always tons of work to go around typically. I think, when you start a job also, there, depending on how big the company is, there's a lot of, especially in a growing company, you can, hey, I really like this project. Is that one way I can go in my career? And then, be proactive about it. Talk to whoever you did the project on. I really like this. Can I do more of this? So I think it's number one, like Jeremy said, have a good attitude, get done what you've asked. Don't try to work the least amount possible. I mean, if you have to stay an extra hour to finish a project, your manager's going to notice things like that. So make sure you're working hard along the way. And, at the end of the day, like I said, if you've been there a couple years and you've been dependable, you've gotten projects done, I think you can then point to that with your manager and, ask if you want to go a certain direction in your career, ask for a raise, ask for a promotion. Just make sure you're, doing the right things along the way with a good attitude, and then be proactive about what you want going forward.
Thanks. All of that was definitely good advice.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to get some other students. You have questions. I know you're dropping in the chat a lot of questions, but this is the time to ask the panelists directly for their feedback or insight into some of those questions. So please feel free to do that at this time.
Hi, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm graduating in May 22 and I'm doing MS in finance. I'm looking for full-time job, but as I asked in the chat also, I'm applying since last more than a couple of months, but I have still not yet received any positive response. So I don't know where I'm going wrong or what should I do better so that I could get more positive responses.
I can hop in there. I think, one of the things that we talked about is if you're applying through a portal or something like that, you're just kind of a piece of paper along with all the others. What you could do is look at the company you're applying for and try to see who the hiring manager is on LinkedIn, and then reach out to them and kind of state your case and say, hey, I've applied for this position. I'd love to talk to you about the opportunity. And even if you don't think this is a fit, I'd love to get any advice, career advice from you if you have the time. And I'll say this, I'm been working a long time, so I really do try to respond to people that ask. I mean, in not every case, can people do that? But I think if you do that, it sounds like you've applied for multiple jobs, and, maybe don't always reach out to the CEO, but if you can see, hey, this person's in that department that you want to get into, and maybe would be a peer of yours, even reach out to them and say, hey, look, I'm interested in this position. I'd love to talk to you about it. And even if you don't think it's a fit, if you have any other advice for me, and maybe a competitor has a position open that they think you might be a good fit for. So I think, again, kind of going after what you want, really trying to make a connection with some of the people who are either in the hiring position or peers that could give you good advice. I think the other thing is, say you're in the finance field, what are some of the organizations out there that you could potentially get involved with? And like, say, the CFA Society, I don't know if that would be something you would be interested in, but go look it up and reach out to whoever's organizing and say, can I come to the next meeting? And then try to talk to people while you're there, and or ask the advice from whoever's organizing the meeting. What advice do they have for you? And I think, just having conversations is going to get you some good advice probably along the way, if not a position. So I just say, keep at it. Try to have real world conversations, try to get, some ideas of where else to look for jobs instead of just, putting your resume in a portal.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have a question for the panelists they'd like to ask?
Hi, I have a question. Hi, this is Shreya. I have a question. So I'm currently studying in cybersecurity. I'm doing my master's, and my previous experience was in IT help desk. So even when I go and look up jobs on LinkedIn, I do get job offers which were IT help desk. So how can I translate that I'm doing my master's in cybersecurity, which is another like one step ahead of IT help desk, but I don't want to do help desk again. I want to work in cybersecurity. And I'm studying in school and I want to translate. How can I do that? I want to utilize what I'm studying. I want to use that in my work. How can I do that?
So I would put in there's a time period where you move your education to the back end of your resume, and there's a time period where you put the education to the front end of your resume. And you want to highlight your master's in cybersecurity right now. It's a bigger wow factor than probably the help desk, but also have the help desk on there. Talk about the projects you're doing at Robinson right now in your resume, if you're doing projects or research oriented things. Also, cover letters are important. So they're not important at the beginning of the portal, but when they start really deciding who we're going to look at, I look at the cover letters for like the top 10 people. So really, and Robinson's got all kinds of people that can help you with this. Really work on showing them what you want to do, what your expectations are, what you're excited about. You seem like you have a little bit of passion towards the subject just from just briefly mentioning it there. So once they start hearing that, people get excited because you're excited, and all of a sudden you might move up, up the thing. So put all the capabilities you have on the resume, but obviously don't obviously lie on it. But that MS that you're talking about should be forefront. That should be what I see. This is a Master's of Science candidate. More than anything else, you're Master's of Science in Cybersecurity candidate. So that's my advice towards that.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we're about 4 minutes away from closing out this panel. And I'd just like to get some closing remarks from any of the alumni that, words of wisdom that you'd like to leave with the students here, or action items or anything like that.
I would say, I would say that people are people. Like, networking makes it seem like a very strategic, a very strategic, mechanical thing. Just remember that people are people. If you're nice, you follow up like how you casually with any other kind of friend or any other kind of person that you want to connect with on a genuine level. A lot of it will just happen organically. The tips we gave are awesome and great suggestions. But to make the whole process less intimidating, it's just more organic human connection that you do with people without probably even realizing it. And I could say that process has made it a lot easier for me to stay connected with people without stressing out.
I'll add to one, I want to thank everyone again. I definitely don't think I was joining calls like this or panels like this when I was in college. It would have been super helpful. So kudos to all of you for already taking that major step. And then I just say further to what Cameron was saying, which I think is really great, is the thing that I wish I would have done sooner was just to remember my personality and think more about my brand and who I wanted to present myself, because it opened the most doors for me. And I was thinking about one of the questions before, I don't see his name, so I apologize, but he talked about sending out resumes and not getting any hits. The thing that I did was I got an interview for a position, and then my first job was a totally different position, but it was because I still went forward, I tried. And then it was a bigger opportunity for me, and I ended up being relocated to New York like less than a year after I graduated. So I'd say just keep at it, because I had rejections like up the kudos, like wait, a lot of them in the beginning, but then it just changed. And so consistency is key. Don't pressure yourself, like really enjoy it. Trust me, this work field gets way more stressful over time. So have fun while you can and just keep at it. And thanks again.
Anyone else on the panel with closing remarks or takeaways?
I'll just take one minute. I agree with everything the panelists said. I think you guys are doing all the right things. You're getting a degree from an excellent university. You're on this. It shows how much you care and how proactive you are. So, everyone gets rejections, but I think go after what you want. Sometimes if you don't get it the first time, find another way in the door and keep at it. And again, if you get that rejection, ask them if they have any ideas for you, and just show how eager you are and enthusiastic and smart, and something will come your way. So kudos to all you guys for doing this, and thanks for having me.
All right. Anyone else before we close out?
I'll just join in with a thank you. And my last piece of advice would be leverage your professors. They're incredible. I had a great relationship with my consumer behavior professor. He actually applied for a job here. So we reconnected. But if you're one of the students who are looking for a little bit more experience and you can't quite get an internship or don't have the time, go to your professors. A lot of them are just exiting the field or still in the field, and see if there's something you can do with them to really build up your portfolio resume with a project that can showcase your skill set. They'll know better than anyone, being your professor, what your capabilities are. So don't be afraid to leverage them. A lot of them get into education, for that reason, to help give back and build you up. So definitely leverage them.
Right. Great.
Go ahead. I have one more question before the panel closes. Can I ask?
Go ahead.
Can I ask?
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I want to say thank you very much to our panelists for taking the time off their busy schedule to be with us here today. My name is Clifford Uzo, and I'm an MBA student in finance. I'll be graduating this May. And it's been very difficult for me and tough for me to get a job. And so I would love to see if the panelists can help or provide some kind of advice or help in this area, so I can, meet my goal of trying to get to where I want to be.
Okay. Well, Clifford, for the sake of time, I know that they added their information, their LinkedIn information, contact information. You can scroll through the chat.
Okay.
And try to grab those links. And just want to respect everybody's time. It is a little 1 minute after 1, but again, first of all, I want to thank the students. Like you said, this is just them taking an investment now, making an investment in their career track. Even though you're academia focused, it's good to be career focused at the same time. And it's important to try to find some balance, you know, between both of those worlds right now. And thank you to the panelists, Cameron, Tashonda, Jeremy, Stephanie, and Brandon. I thank you guys for responding to this invitation. You have definitely left a lot of good information. And also, like I said, your contact information, if students want to reach out and you be a mentor, or you can share some more valuable information to them as well. Definitely, we will conclude this panel for alumni career tips, and want everyone to be safe and have a great day. Thank you again, panelists. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.